All right, so I hope that was good and that was a blessing to all of you. Appreciate the opportunity to share that. I know a lot of you are going to have some nice discussions when you go home. You're going to go, did you hear what Rabbi said? Look, I want you to say exactly that to the mirror. Okay? I want all of you to go home and look in the mirror and go, did you hear what Rabbi said? Don't say it to your spouse or your children. Say it to yourself. All right? Okay, so this is what we call the afterburn. So if you have a comment or question, you can go ahead and get lined up here in the front. And Paul's got a mic that he can hand you. On the live stream, we got Kurt and Gary back there, taking down your comments or questions about the teaching today. And I guess we'll begin with Ben.
Thank you, Rabbi, and that was an awesome teaching. And first of all, I just wanted to say how awesome it is that you spent that time with Brianna last night, working with her, that she has that heart and that passion to want to learn how to study and put together a study. And I just pray that as my children grow up, that's the attitude and the approach that they'll have towards the scripture, and that my life will be the light and the example that will want them to have that attitude and approach towards scripture. So that is fantastic.
Okay, well, just to be clear to all of you, I don't want you thinking, well, of course, you're the rabbi and you go and make your children. No, she came to me, just so it's clear, and asked me to do this with her. Okay, so I don't want you thinking that somehow it's because of who I am, that if you're doing these things, your child may come to you and want to study the word with you or whatever it is. But just understand that this is something she asked me to do, not because it's something that, you might think every day I go home and I teach my children the scriptures. That is not the case. My wife would like it to be the case, but the children have to be interested. And remember, just because they're my children doesn't mean they're automatically Torah pursuing and excited and have their bubbles popped. That's an individual thing. And when they pursue it, I'm here for them. And so she decided she wanted to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear so that you, as Ben just said at the end of it, he desires that his children may come to him at some point and want to do these things. Okay? Continue.
So now it's on to the question part, and this is tying together something from prayer time along with Romans 12:18, and it has to do with how we interact with other people, specifically those that were here at Beth Shalom and MTOI that have gone on for various reasons to either other places or to do something on their own, but are still claiming to be a part of the body of Messiah and still claiming to be Torah pursuant. And the question comes with, what level of interaction should we have with them and how should we treat them?
Okay, excellent question. Okay, first of all, look, this is one of the biggest questions that comes up. Not so much what Ben was saying as far as like how to treat these people. But understand, the thing that's dividing a lot of the groups is what criteria, what determines the members of the body being part of the body or not? What determines being covenanted or not? And there's articles being written. As a matter of fact, one of the groups I mentioned has an article on their website about, Christians being covenanted or not, okay? And I've taught all about this here. And there's definitely so there's 2 points here. One is the idea of who's in the body, who's covenanted, et cetera. The other is how do we treat or interact with people that are not in the same place we are, okay? So there's 2 parts of this. So let's answer the first part. And of course, I wish I did a teaching that was around 55 parts that covered that. Oh, wait a minute, I did, called Are You Covenanted? But the covenant, this is important, was Mount Sinai, Exodus 19. All right, there's your covenant, verse 5 or so, where he says, if the people are willing to do and obey my voice, then I will take them as my people, etc. Now, that's the covenant. It's never changed. The accepting Yeshua, well, the guys at Sinai all accepted Yeshua. They just only stood him as Yahweh, as the Torah giver at that point. Okay, so there was no problem with that. Now, the thing is, there's another part to this where people are now thinking, well, if you are not obeying and keeping all the commandments, etc., well, you're still covenant, because they want to make the argument that all of the church is still in the body. This is what the article was arguing, basically. And the scripture makes it very clear that there is, how many laws are there for the body or the covenanted and the ger? 1 law. So that means that even those not yet in the camp, who were pursuing being in the camp, were still at that point expected to submit to the covenant, through obedience to the law. So no, there is no scriptural basis for pork eating, Sunday keeping, Christmas and Easter keeping, or whatever else anybody may be doing out there, claiming to believe in Messiah, no matter what name they use, it's not even the point, being in the same place that those who are pursuing these things are, okay? So let's make that clear. There seems to be a shift, and I've been watching this for over 20 years, but there seems to be a shift, and this goes in sort of in cycles, but we're back to a cycle of shifting to pandering to the mainstream and somehow wanting to connect with them and have them be connected with us, and somehow we're all part of the same kumbaya circle, okay? And I see it happening, and so first of all, let's understand that there are not, let me say it a different way, there's definitely more than one camp. There is the camp and everybody outside the camp. And they can have their own little camps all they want outside there, but they're not in the camp. And that's not cockiness, that's not haughtiness, that's straight scripture. All right? As a matter of fact, when people broke the commandments, they were put outside the camp. That was part of the process. So let's just keep that. So that's number one. Number two is, how should we interact with or treat those who are outside the camp? Well, first and foremost, we are to love everybody. I mean, if you have to love your enemies, you have to love everybody. And I don't say that anybody who left here or is outside the camp is an enemy. So if you have to love your enemies, people who are actively trying to hurt you and kill you, then certainly you have to love people who are somewhere different in their walk. So we love them. Now, the level of interaction, what does that love look like? Well, we're patient with them. We're kind to them. You understand? It doesn't mean that we have to be besties with them, or whatever phrase you use, right? We're not going to have to be best friends with them. As a matter of fact, we don't even have to be friends with them. Because friends is a certain relationship that you only have with a few people anyway, because you have certain things in common, right? What makes a friendship? Commonalities of things of interests that you have that make you feel comfortable to spend a lot of time together. That's friends. So what you end up doing, though, okay, and what you should be doing is you should be kind, all the fruit of the Spirit, patient, okay, gentle, understanding, and all these things, but be aware that they, as all human beings, would rather, just like you would rather for them, would rather you be where they are. And so you have to be carefully aware that they may try to draw you to that camp. I'm not talking about a different congregation. If we were all teaching relatively the same thing, that'd be different. But we're not, okay? Okay, the two congregations near here are very, very Christian in a lot of what they do. That may be something that interests you, it may not. That's up to you. But the thing is, that's not what we're teaching here, okay? If you listen to the teachings here, these are very different than probably almost anywhere in a lot of ways. Very similar, I guess, in some basic ways, but very different. So yes, anybody that has either never been here, like I've got friends who've never been here. I've got friends I've known since I was a kid. You know, now by friends, I mean we were friends then and we are friendly to each other if we interact now, probably once a year or two. I mean, it's not like we spend a whole lot of time because we don't have the common interests anymore that cause you to spend more time together. Does that make sense? Okay? So anybody that was here that leaves, if you run into them, be friendly on whatever level you were before. There are people that left here that you may not even hardly know except you recognize their face. Well, be friendly, you know. But don't treat them necessarily all that different. And by the way, if they don't wish to share with you their reasons, don't ask. I guess it's fine, you know. They don't have to share with you. Because if they do, there may likely be a discussion that turns into an argument if you don't agree with their reasons or whatever it is. Or they may try to then push you to see whatever their reasons was so you would agree with them. So I don't know there's a lot of benefit to that. So when people ask me, well, don't you want to know why somebody left? And I said, sure, I guess, but it's not really critical that I know. You know, if they wanted to tell me, they would. If they don't, they don't. And so I don't, pursue. And by the way, if you do leave without telling me, that's fine. If you send me a text, that's fine. If you call me, that's fine. If you come, whatever way you do it. If you send me a text or something in writing, I may not respond. I just want to be clear in case that comes up. And the reason I won't respond is because I don't think I can put what I want to say into a few sentences typed into a text, especially when I'm given limited information to respond to. And I always tell people, and I'm going to show you that I walk my talk. Never text anything that needs to be understood correctly and detailed correctly, because it will be, they'll read whatever tone of voice into it they want or whatever they want to do. I'm not saying that everybody does this in a, with a bad motive, but I mean, even friendly people, friends texting each other will read the wrong things into the text. I use text for things like, if I'm coming and I'm letting Billy know, hey, I'm on my way, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I might text that, all right? Things that don't need interpretation, they're not subject to all that kind of stuff. But when something's emotionally charged, like someone quitting or leaving or deciding to move on and do something else, I don't want to respond to that in a text. So I won't. Not because I don't want to come across the wrong way. I don't know where my emotions may be at that moment. And so if they didn't think to talk to me and they chose to text, and I'm going to use the same thing saying, I didn't feel comfortable doing that, just like you didn't feel comfortable doing the other thing. So I didn't. It's not anger, it's not that bitterness. I don't want to be misunderstood, and I don't want to have to think through what I want to say that detailed or type it out. Knowing that everything I say is going to not only be parsed, but because I'm the rabbi, it's going to be shared with everybody. Whatever I type, they're going to share. So I'm not going to give any of that. Okay? Does that make sense? Just so you understand? But as far as Ben, what you're talking about, look, we don't hate them. We're not, I guess at most we are sad or disappointed or confused. Okay? That should be the only negatively even hinted at emotions is confusion, sadness, or disappointment. Okay, let's not let it go any further than that. Now, of course, if there are people that leave and they start attacking, that's a different thing. Then unfriend them or whatever you need to do. Now, by the way, some of you will say, but Rabbi, I looked on your Facebook page and you're friends with some of these people. I don't go on Facebook. I friended them probably 8 years ago or 6 years, whatever it was. Okay? And so don't read too much into anybody I'm friended to. All right, these are people that I accepted friend requests from. I haven't accepted a friend request except maybe 1 or 2 in the last 2 or 3 years, and only because it happened to be somebody that said to me, who I knew, and said, how come you haven't accepted my request? And I always want to ask, why do you even want to friend me? I don't post anything. There's like no reason to friend me on Facebook. Matter of fact, I'm thinking of just killing my account. I don't use it, okay? So I don't know why anybody would friend me on Facebook. I have a ministry account to interact with everybody. Right, through the group page. I don't post anything, and I never look at Facebook. My wife tells me everything that's going on, or my children, or somebody else sees it. I don't see it. People come to me. Sometimes Gary sees something, somebody else. I'm not on Facebook. And it's not because I'm against Facebook. I just don't have any time. Okay? And I'm not into, oh, look what these people post and everything, because I don't care. Okay? I'm just being blunt. I don't care. I don't care about the pictures of your life and everything else you're doing. I'm trying to get you into the kingdom, okay? So the fact that so the fact that you went to the beach or an amusement park or had a nice dinner and you posted, it doesn't interest me, okay? Other people are like, oh, look, this is great, and give you nice hearts and loves for your likes and things. I'm not on Facebook unless someone forces me there. I don't mean like kicking and screaming, but somebody gave me a reason to go, okay? So I don't know these things. So don't read too much. And besides, if I'm friends with them, it's the only way I get to see what they post, okay? And so some of them have unfriended me, so I don't get to see what they post, but some of them let me stay friends with them, and that's fine. So then I can look them up and see what they post, because sometimes they're posting about me, and now I can see it, all right? And so I don't know, because some of the people we talked about during the announcements, apparently I'm friends with them on Facebook, which is fine. Those friendships were created, it's so funny to call it friends. Like, you hardly know half the people you're friends with. But, these are people from many, many years ago. I guess we were friends. But look, my people used to get very frustrated with my wife because she thought the word friends actually meant friends. And so she would not accept friend requests from people in the ministry unless she actually was friends with them. Just because they came to the congregation didn't mean they were friends. Okay? Friendship is a relationship. It doesn't mean just like I know you. That makes us friends. Like I recognize your face, I know your name, so now we're friends. No, friendship is a relationship. And so hopefully those of you that maybe wonder why she may not have friended you, although she's gotten a little better about that over the years and letting more people be friends, realize that if she's not actually your friend and don't have that relationship with her, she wasn't going to, friend. And that made sense to me. I understood that. See, other people didn't, though. They got offended. Why? They'll come to me. I've tried to friend request your wife 3 times. Are you her friend? No, so then stop it. What are you upset about? You know, like having friends is a big status. I got almost 3,000, whatever, 4,000 friends. I don't know almost any of them, okay? Why is I don't care how many it is. I could be the maximum 5,000 if I wanted. I got that many waiting easily. I just don't, I got like pending thousands of requests, whatever. But I don't know any of these people. Not that well. You understand what I'm saying? And so just keep that in mind. So for Ben's question, okay, like the Fergusons who just left, if you run into them, be friendly, be kind, be nice. I mean, we should all hope that they're doing well and finding whatever it is they're looking for, right? Everybody that leaves here, I hope they find what they're looking for, because they're on their own journey that I still hope ends up in the kingdom, all right? I happen to think this is the best way to do it, of course, because this is what I feel we're supposed to be doing. But that doesn't mean that I feel like they're lost and gonna just not get there because they chose a different path of a zigzag. I zigzagged myself a little bit on the way to this point, you know? And so, yeah, good question, though, because I appreciate that. Let's not treat anybody with now, of course, there are those that we put outside the camp, it's a whole different problem. Remember, there's 2 different levels to this. Someone leaves and someone gets put out. They get put out, we've talked about that enough. So you know there's a difference, okay? Now, again, not that we're going to shun or be mean to people that are put out, but, you know, cordial is more the appropriate thing for people outside that have been put out. Okay? And you're hoping, again, also that they get their stuff straightened out and that they find what they need and end up in the kingdom as well. All right, Steve.
Okay. Help me clarify my thought. Unconditional love.
Wait. I think I'm completely unqualified for that. Help you clarify your thought.
Okay. Unconditional love is not unconditional acceptance for a behavior which is not in line with his commandments or his right rulings.
That's correct, but I think it needs some clarification. Okay. So, yes, unconditional love, okay, doesn't mean that you're going to like and accept everything. It means that you're still going to love them in spite of all of that undesirable stuff, okay? So, some of you, and I've interacted with people, maybe not in this congregation, but we've had over the years in the congregation, some of you have children in jail. Some of you may have spouses in jail. Do you stop loving them? No. Did they do some things that were wrong? Yes. Okay, some of you have ex-spouses, and you still may love them in an appropriate way, considering that you know you can't live with them anymore, you've been divorced or whatever, but there still is a love there. Behavior should have nothing to do with love, all right? We behave in all kinds of dumb ways, and Yahweh loves us anyway. So love and behavior are not connected. Now, that's why I've had this, you know, you can have a conversation with your spouse. I love you, but I don't like you very much right now. In other words, I don't like the way the behavior and interaction is happening. The behavior affects whether or not you like something, not whether or not you love something. All right? Does that make sense? So what Steve's talking about, yes, if we're talking about whether or not you should like that aberrant behavior, that behavior that's not desirable, or breaking of Torah, whatever they're doing, no, you shouldn't like that at all. But do you still need to love the person? Absolutely. If that's what Yeshua would do, he'd love you anyway. Okay? But you might not like. So kind of make sure you can separate those 2 concepts. All right? Sometimes I don't like what my children are doing. I say, I love you. I don't really like what you're doing right now, but I love you. So I don't want, see, because we can connect in a wrong way because of the strength of our reaction, and the person's going to think, they don't love me anymore. And you got to be really careful you don't communicate that. Okay? My daughter and I are so close that if I'm not careful and I go to give her some strong correction at any point, which very rarely happens, but she may start to think, I don't love her anymore. And I have to always say, no, I love you. I just didn't like this thing you did. Okay? And so we have to be careful. The spouses have the real hard time with that because we get so angry with them and they get angry with us, whatever it is, that we're not feeling any love anymore. And certainly it's not being communicated at that moment either. And then the person may think, I thought you didn't love me anymore. I've heard spouses look at each other like, well, I thought he didn't love me anymore. I thought she didn't love me anymore. And they look at the other one like, what are you talking about? Well, because the way you were acting, because you didn't like what's going on, got communicated as not loving the person. So let's be careful that you're you're able to communicate both. I don't like this, but I still love you. Okay? I know it sounds a little tough, but somebody have to do that. All right, Steve?
Okay. And then you talked about we're to function as he is, not ourselves. But there, I think, isn't there a connection that yet laying ourselves down is hard because we have such an emotional connection. We feel that by giving up ourselves, makes us feel like our feelings don't count in the matter which we're asked to lay ourselves down in.
Okay. Man, it's a good thing I speak Steve. Okay, so there's a challenge emotionally, and I guess in our ego, and that's more of a psychology term I'm talking about, in that part of us that's called the ego, with a fear that somehow becoming him means you're not going to be you anymore, or is going to require you to stop being you. And he doesn't want you to stop being you. He wants you to be you who's embraced some thinking processes and behavior patterns that's his, that are appropriate, okay? But you're still gonna have your own unique, beautiful, individual way of approaching everything. In other words, it's like, let's say he wants everything to be ice cream, okay? And right now, you're not ice cream, you're cake, all right? But he wants everything to be ice cream. But let's say right now, you're strawberry, you're vanilla, you're chocolate, whatever it is, but you're a different flavor. But so that's the kind of cake you are, but he still wants you to keep your flavor, but he wants you to be ice cream. Does that make any sense? But you're still gonna have that flavor that's you, okay? So he's not wanting you to change in this sort of way that you're not you anymore. Because I talk to all of you, and you're a lot of fun, and you're awesome, and you're interesting, and you're different, and you bring a lot to the mix that without you, there'd be something missing. But he wants us to think about our choices, even though you can do those choices with your own flavor, but those choices to be in line with how he would make decisions, from a point of view of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, in terms of doing things as designed, not as we would go against the way they were designed to be. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And I know it was weird maybe with the cake and ice cream thing, but I want you to understand that he's not looking, and I understand Steve's question because I've seen that, in couples where maybe the husband or the wife is being really strong with the other one about submission or this or whatever it is, and they're like, but that makes the one feel like, but you don't want me to be me anymore. It's like, no. Okay, the person married you because you're you. There's just certain behaviors that are problematic, okay? But you can do all behaviors in your own unique way, meaning it still has your personality and flavor to it, that if you and I are doing, like Janet's up there now, okay, or Steve was up there before, so that's 3 people we're talking about, we can all 3 do the exact same thing and do it just a little differently, although we're doing the exact same thing because of our personalities and our flavors, yet doing things that are appropriate, okay? All right? Like say we're painting the wall. One of us could just be there very mechanically, painting the wall. Just painting the wall, whatever we're doing. Another one might be kind of dancing around a little bit and singing, like, okay, I'm painting the wall. Whatever. Another one could be doing, in other words, but you're still, the thing itself is being done. We're painting the wall, all right? And everything's getting done well, but you're bringing your own flavor to it, okay? And so that's very important for us to understand. Yahweh doesn't want you to stop being you. He wants you to make decisions that are in line with how he intended you to be and how he designed this thing to work. And he's trying to that's the mind that we're talking about. Hopefully that makes sense. Steve, did I answer your question? All right, good. All right. All right. I speak Janet also, so it's good. Okay.
Rabbi, thank you. That was amazing, as usual. Oh, my goodness. I was missing so much of teaching like this.
So this is kind of verse 1 here. I speak with tongues of men, and I say I got to speak Janet, I speak Steve, I speak, Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. But yes, a couple of things that got my attention where you were saying that when we follow him, that we actually experience his joy and, the goodness that comes from doing good, right, according to him. And when you were saying, the scripture says it's how good it is for brothers to dwell together, whatever it says in that, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity, right? Just how when we're not doing that, like I'm thinking about in a marriage situation, like if we're not walking in unity, it really helped me. Really, you helped me a lot when you said, you're actually doing evil because you're doing what this was not designed to be that way. You're supposed to do what he designed you to be. So it brings a different, to me at least, it brings me to a different level of, I guess, taking more seriously, what I'm doing, like really considering that it's evil. Like you were saying, there is no like a better little evil or a bigger level of evil. Evil is evil, right? So
Yeah, you know what? But hold on. I think it's important. I mean, it would be great. It would be great if we could just embrace the words that were being used here in the English translation out of the Hebrew or whatever, or the English translation out of the Greek. But if it doesn't work for you to use the word evil because it's got that connotation of these extremes, then try to use the idea of not as intended by the Creator. In other words, not as He intended it to be. So recognize that while your spouse may be doing things that are not as maybe the Creator intended to be, or you may have desired it, but looking at yourself. But that word evil, if it's a hang-up for you, just be careful with it, because it's really hard for us when we think of evil as being these extremes that, like in movies, the really bad people do. That's evil. Genocides and wars and rapes and, all these terrible things that, of course, those are evil. But these other things He defines also as evil, and that's hard for our brains to put that word, because now we're equating things in this weird way with these really atrocity type things, right? These horrible things. But yet to Him, anything that's not as He intended it is evil. So let's be careful. If it helps you not to use the word evil, use something else that makes sure that it's communicating to you. The point is, you're not functioning as designed. You're not thinking like He wants you to think as designed. You're doing things that's not how He intended them to be. You're using something for something it was never intended to be used for, whatever it is, okay? Like when you work on Shabbat, Shabbat was never intended for work.
right.
He designed it from the creation to be a day to rest, not to work. So when we work on Shabbat, we're going against His original intent for that space of time, all right? So, but it's hard to then say working on Shabbat is evil. Because now someone's thinking that you may think of them as like a murderer or something, or something we normally think of as evil, okay? So let's kind of, maybe that'll help, I don't know.
Yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you. But when you were talking about communication, I kept thinking about this couple that I'm working with. When you were saying, you have to realize that obviously there's two sides of the story, right? And I see in marriages, we probably see the same, that people, the two spouses, they want to stay in what they think it's right, in their version and perspective, and they don't want to move from there. And it's so hard to get them to see the other, to hear, to really listen to the other person's perspective and acknowledge and validate, and And so I guess I wanted to ask you, do you have any suggestions, even as in marriage, our own marriages, like how to get out from that kind of cycle when you're kind of stuck in your place and you don't want to move from there?
I usually get both of them in the same room together, and I take their heads and I smack them together. I just go, bam. Okay, so Billy's thinking, yeah, let's do that next time we have counseling with people like that, right? Yeah, I got 2 thumbs up from Billy. Okay, now look, what I do in counseling that seems to work is 2 things, all right? One, I'm not reluctant to interrupt as someone's going when it's their turn to talk. I don't let the other one interrupt. But I'm not hesitant to interrupt once a point is made before the person makes 15 points and we don't get to address them. So I'll take the 1 point that the person just made, and then I talk to the other spouse. I say, okay, do you understand, not why or agree, but do you understand that this is how this person feels? Because there may be 15 points, some of which the other spouse understands, yeah, I can understand why she's upset about that or he's upset about that. So you want to see how many of those you can work with. Because in the full picture of it, they're not talking and they're mad. But there may be some of the points where they actually can see it and they can work little pieces of it. So I'll take one, the spouse goes, well, blah, 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 blah. I say, then I'll go to the other one. Okay, how do you feel about that? Do you agree that that's, and sometimes I'll say, yeah, I did that. Sometimes they're like, I don't know. Now, if they agree with it, great. We can move on to the next point. If they don't agree, then I say, okay, then I get the spouse that didn't agree to go ahead and validate that the other one felt this way, whether it is true or not, whether they agreed with it or not, it's irrelevant, that's how they really felt. Okay? Because validation is a big part of what I do with counseling. I want each person to recognize that their spouse isn't making stuff up as far as how they feel. They may not be remembering everything exactly the way it happened, but the way they felt and they feel now, you have to say, I get it, you're upset about that. Whatever it is, whether I think you should be, that's not the point. Usually what happens, though, we filter through, well, I don't know why she's so upset, or I don't know why he's so upset. That's true. You don't understand. That's why we're fighting. But what you first have to do is acknowledge that they're upset and that their feelings are real. And so then we can start working from that instead of you. Because what happens is if you and I are fighting, Janet, right? We're fighting, let's say we're married and we're fighting, and I don't think there's any reason for you to be upset, then I no longer validate that you're upset. As a matter of fact, because I think that this is like crazy, because why are you upset? There's no reason to be upset. Why are you screaming? There's no reason to scream. See, I've not accepted that whatever happened, at least in your understanding and perception, really upsets you, which only is going to upset you more, because now you don't have validated feelings. Okay? And so remember, validation, the way I'm using it, doesn't mean that I think that they're valid. Okay? I'm validating that that is how you feel, not whether or not you should, it's appropriate, or anything else. Okay? But I'm getting the one spouse to do, and this is kind of starting to break through that whole deal, because like you said, when they can't budge, is to at least first say, do you understand your spouse is really upset about this? Yes, I do, but blah, blah, blah. No, wait. You don't agree, I understand why, or this, that, but I want you to understand that their perception of whatever happened, the way they saw it, has them really upset. Do you like them being upset? Oh, no. Okay, so let's start with recognizing that this is through their filters and their perception, and maybe truly in reality, this is how they saw it. Let's work with that first. And so that tends to work, at least to calm things down and break things through. So again, I may let someone, because somebody will start going, and he did this, and she did that. Well, they're just going on a long list. I said, oh, stop, hold on. Let's try to take these things one at a time. Because if I can find a few that they agree on, that's already going to start opening the door a little bit. Because the one person may go, no, she's right, I did do that and I was wrong. Or, oh, he's right, I did do that and I was wrong. Okay, good. That starts building the process forward. Then we get to the one where he goes, that's not what happened, but okay, hold on. Now let's unsort that a little bit. Okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.
This is from my extensive training in psychology school.
When you were saying that you are usurping his position when you get angry, I try to really write what you say, right? I was wondering if you could help me understand.
No. You said it wrong. Okay.
Okay.
So it's not that we're usurping when we get angry.
Yeah, okay.
We're usurping when we want the vengeance. Okay? So when we're trying to get our pound of flesh or get some sort of justice, or we're trying to make in other words, we're trying to punish the other person because we feel bad. That's the vengeance. Getting angry is something we just need to get under control. There's no reason to get angry. That's an emotional instability. That's a tripwire that happens. The vengeance is mine comes out when we want to punish the other person and say things to make them hurt. Because you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. Now we're doing vengeance. Okay? Any kind of balancing that out is vengeance. That's the problem. Okay? So it's different than just being angry. Angry is a problem just because we need to have enough self-discipline to not get angry. Okay?
Last one, if you allow me.
Yeah.
When you're talking about love, one of the things that says in there was love does not envy. And you were giving examples about just relationships and things that we have. But I kept thinking about some of the teenagers that I work with. They're really concerned about their self-image, and they start to envy other people because they're like thinner or taller or whatever it is, right? I just wanted to see if you could maybe speak a little bit about that, because if you have any ideas too on how to approach that, because they're so much into themselves at that age that it's hard for them to even start to see their self-love and their value, because it's not only self-love for others, but it's also self-love, correct?
All right, so, and first of all, I want to explain a comment I was saying real quickly in jest about, my extensive going to psychology school. Look, I just have a problem sometimes with people in that industry, and I know Janet's in that industry, but you have to be really careful that you're not just stuck doing whatever the books taught you or school taught you, but you have to really be looking uniquely at every individual situation and pulling every tool out that you have. Because I've been to, counseling and with people that want to do counseling for therapy and that kind of stuff just to see what they do with people. And I've gone and sat with members of a congregation who wanted me to come and sit in on their sessions when they went to their professional therapist. And a lot of them are not doing much more than taking their hourly wage, trying to throw you a few little things. They're not really caring the same way that maybe your ministry person might. Of course, I've also gone to ministry people that had no training and knew nothing what they were doing. So it's really tough. I mean, I praise Yah that he's given me the talents and gifts through, and by the way, it's not just talents and gifts, but I've studied this for like 40 years, understanding why we do what we do and why we don't do what we don't do and that kind of stuff. What motivates us? How do we motivate ourselves? All the personal development, life coaching type stuff applies in all of this, okay? And so now take that and we'll go to the teenager thing. The teenagers, you guys back there, you teenagers, you're weird, okay? No, I always say that as a joke because it's not their fault that they're weird. All teenagers were weird throughout history because they're not children and they're not adults. It's a weird place to be, okay? And so as a teenager, what we're having struggles with is them trying to figure out how to do something and be something they're not yet qualified for. And so they get to experience adult situations, adult processes and problems. They start to discover relationships they're not equipped to do yet at that point emotionally, because the hormonal thing has them noticing each other and getting excited about each other and wanting to have relationships and all of that. We're also very social creatures, so we tend to want to have that social interaction. And then we get to the point that Janet was making is the idea of self-love and validation as a person, not validation the way I was talking about it, which is you need somebody to validate your value. In other words, you don't have enough yet inside to not need others to give that to you because you're a teenager. It takes years to develop that internal self-confidence and strength in caring and loving and being comfortable in your own skin that you don't need outside validation, okay? And so I think some of that can come from and needs to come from the fathers, okay, especially for the daughters. The boys don't have it as bad, although they do have it more than they used to, but the girls especially, the dads have to really, really pour into their daughters appropriately all the love, all the confidence, all the self-worth, all the validation, so they don't need to get it, because they're going to seek it from somewhere if you're not giving it to them, okay? I think all the teenagers are not going to go all whatever. But my daughter, I work hard to all the time give her so she doesn't need it from anybody. That doesn't mean that at this point as a teenager she's not desiring it like all the others do, but I think that she has some balance because I give that to her as best I can, all right? And I think everybody sees a lot of the evidence of that, and that's why I said the teenagers are going to be like, oh, look, okay, this is just those realities. But you teenagers also have to recognize that you have a chance to get yourselves in all kinds of trouble. All you teenagers that are talking to each other now instead of looking at me. Do I need to call you out? Okay? But all of you over there, you can get in all kinds of trouble. We'll use a phrase from the song, looking for love in all the wrong places. Okay, if you start to try to get your validation and your affirmation and your feeling of worth from other people, you can get yourself in all kinds of trouble as teenagers, okay? And you can start to look at things in the wrong way. The next thing you know, you've got, I don't even know what the numbers are, but we've got a huge majority of our teenagers, not just the ones here I'm talking about, teenagers all around the world, females, the women, the girls, thinking that somehow it validates them to take their clothes off and let people see them online. They do. It's all over. They wear as little as they can on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. I don't even know what softwares they use, what apps they're using, but this is like a huge thing, okay? And if that's not enough, they meet guys, and what do the guys want to do? They want to try to get nudes from you. And this is how you're going to get your self-worth? There's no self-worth in showing your body naked to somebody, okay? That is not how you get value. Dressing in a way to get attention. Attention can be good or bad. Sometimes you think attention is good no matter what. So you try anything you can to get attention. Because in the attention, you think it validates you in some way. Don't try to be validated in wrong ways. Ways that ultimately are degrading and not uplifting and not strengthening, okay? But this is what's going on. Almost all our children have been exposed to pornography. They all have all kinds of wrong ideas about all of the things physically and sexually. And again, they may perceive that things validate you, or they're watching YouTubers who think that profanity, every other word, gets them all famous, so that maybe that's a way to get validated, or whatever. We're looking for the wrong ways to be affirmed. And so, if we as parents aren't doing what we need to do to affirm them, and to be proud of them, and to give them outlets to be themselves, and then have us give them that validation that they need, etc., and correction when it needs to, and guidance, then they're going to get it somewhere. Because at that age, it is a need. Do I understand that? Yes and no. Yes, meaning I was a teenager and I remember needing some of that. No, I don't know why that is. But it's part of, I think, the transition into that individualism of adulthood, where all these things just fall now on you as an individual, which didn't happen when you were a child. Okay, you were just, a son or a daughter, part of a family, and you had friends and stuff, but you didn't have all this stuff where anybody looked at you and cared what you thought about anything. Now everybody is going to either mock, make fun of, pick on, or get excited about and share whatever thing comes out of your mouth or anything you do. It's going to be all about your status. Okay? Everything you do. That's why you're posting. You're posting because you're wanting a response. And if you don't get the response you want, you get depressed and you get upset. And why doesn't anybody like my things? Or why do people mock this? Why do people do that? You got to get to a place where you appreciate the ones who appreciate you and you are not affected by the others. That is not an easy place to get. I've got a majority of the adults aren't there yet. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, some of you laugh, but most of the adults I interact with are not there yet. They are so affected by what everybody else thinks of them. I watch a lot of, I'm an ADD person. As an ADD person, I happen to love the TikTok format, in that the things are like, most of them are 30 seconds, a minute at the most. And then once you start following some of the feeds, you get a lot of the same stuff that the algorithm sends you more. And I get a lot of really short, motivational, overcoming challenges in life type of little TikToks, okay? And they're really from bigger speeches or bigger things, probably from YouTube or somewhere. And they all say a lot of the same stuff, which is where you've got to get to the place where what everybody else thinks has no effect on you. In other words, you don't need their thoughts to feel good, and whatever they think can't make you feel bad. You're making your choices because you're making your choices because you're trying to do what's right in Yahweh's eyes or whatever it is, but you cannot allow what other people think to control, influence, and manifest in your life. That is a road to absolute misery, okay? And when you start needing that, you're pretty much headed down a bad path, because that path has no good, there's no good end to that path, okay? My daughter has said to me many times, when people are attacking me, doesn't that hurt your feelings and everything? Don't you get upset? I'm like, I don't like it, but I don't allow it to affect me. Because if I did, it goes to a bad place, okay? So when people do things and I say, I don't care, and you look at me, how's that possible? Because it's the only right way to be. Because anything else is going to lead me into a wrong place. I'll get hurt, I'll get upset, I'll get angry, I'll try to take vengeance and get my pound of, I'll do something. Because a lot of people said, oh, this person posted this, how come you didn't post something back? Because there's no good to that. That mindset and that path doesn't lead anywhere good. So to get to a place of success, in whatever area of life you want to be successful, you have to get to a place where you are minimally affected by what everybody else thinks. Okay? That, as a matter of fact, if anything, just seek out the negative feedback just to say, okay, I wonder if there's anything there so I could fix or improve something, but don't need their validation, don't need their praise, don't need their all that stuff. So if somebody wants to give you negative feedback, that's great. I can either find out I don't agree with you and that I'm sorry that you feel that way, or I can say, I didn't realize that, maybe I can work on that. And that's fine too, but stop giving all that power to everybody else, right? Only those, listen again, only those who actually love you. No, not this teenager thing where, oh, I love you, and oh, I love you. No, that's not love yet, okay? Because it was 5 different people in the last 2 years. I love you, okay? That's not the way love works. And especially after you're no longer an item or whatever you are and you now hate each other, then it wasn't love, okay? But you need to have those that love you are the only ones that you should care about what they think. That make sense? And not someone who says they love you, but someone who loves you. Then their opinion should matter. Okay? Does that help? Okay? Because I've got people calling me up and emailing me so distraught because somebody who they didn't know said something to them on Facebook about whatever they were doing and it disturbed their peace. I'm like, do you know the person? No. So why do you care? I don't know why you care. It's like, so what? Person's an angry, bitter person. There's a lot of those people out there. And most of them know how to keep their mouths shut. So they're going to yak and yak. So why just ignore them? You know. But that's hard to do because of our emotional immaturity. And I really hate to say it that way, but a lot of us have a certain level of arrested emotional development. And that's a real thing. You stopped somewhere in your emotional development. You got older, but your emotions didn't. And the world is suffering horribly from emotional arrested development, or arrested emotional development, whatever way it's supposed to be, okay? Because we're still acting like little kids. I mean, a lot of times when I'm talking to people, I swear I'm talking to like 11-year-olds, not 40-year-olds. Because of the things that are bothering them on the level that made sense when they were 11, I guess, but not when they're 40. But you got stuck emotionally in middle school or high school. And then nothing, that's who you are, okay? And then people don't know how to handle me because I'm not there mostly. I've gone beyond that. And they're like, they don't understand the way I react to things. That's because you've not moved to that place. I'm not looking down at you saying that, but you're stuck in an emotional place. Now, that's not to say I don't get emotional in ways that are still out of control and need to be worked on. I do. I just have less areas of that than some of you because I don't have all that other stuff bothering me because I recognize in an emotional maturity that stuff is not stuff for me to worry about. It doesn't actually affect me just because someone throws it in my direction. I don't have to catch it. It's like I have a force field. It can just bounce off and who cares? I don't have to worry about ducking out of the way. I'm just like, throw it all you want. I just don't care. But you do, and that's because you still haven't figured out that you shouldn't care. Okay? All right, Ashley. Okay, Paul.
I have a quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
About what you just said about giving away power. I was thinking along those lines that I'm giving that person control over me.
Yep.
When I should be giving that control to him.
Correct.
Why am I renting that space in my brain for them?
Exactly. Yep.
Boy, today is teaching I needed to hear in many different aspects. First question, where were you when I was 14? Because I needed you, or even 8, or 2, or 10. Boy, sorry.
No, that's okay. Look, okay, hold on.
Sorry.
No. I get this. And it's a sad truth and a sad reality that most of us, including me, did not have this when we were that age. okay? Because our parents didn't have it when they were that age, and it's just a generational, dysfunctional thing, because nobody ever trains anybody how to do this, okay? So I get that, and I think everybody here appreciates you're speaking on their behalf, all right? Because I know a lot of people feel the same way. Go, why couldn't I have had, I know some people watch me with my kids and like, why couldn't I have had a dad like that? I said, I didn't have a dad like that, okay? But somebody needed to. I understood that some of the things that I'm trying to do is try to be an example, and also to make sure my children get to have what I didn't have so they can do it with their children, because I'm teaching them, okay? So I feel that, and I appreciate that you shared that, but just so you know, I didn't have it when I was 2 or 8 either, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But you know what? Take advantage of that you have it now. Okay, that's, The only thing worse than recognizing what you didn't have is to not appreciate it when you now have it and just not take full advantage. Okay? All right, go ahead.
If I may, and if I may take a minute or two to understand where I'm coming from with this. With my dad, growing up, and like I said, I didn't know what love was until I came here, and I say that many times. And I say that because I love my dad loved me, my mom loves me, I love her. But I thought love was, when I was 8, going out and 7 Mile into Quender, dealing dope with my dad because I was spending time with him. Or I thought love was going to a party and having things done that shouldn't have been done and miscarrying a child later on. Or I thought love was the attention of doing things with photography without wearing anything. And I thought love was all that. And I'm reading, and I never actually looked at Corinthians 13 or 1 Corinthians 13. I read the whole chapter while you were speaking. And it's amazing when I keep talking to you and I keep talking to you and I'm trying to get answers. A lot of the answers are here. But I'm learning I can't love other people if I don't love myself. But at the same time, how do I don't even know where to honestly start.
No, I understand. Okay.
Huh?
I understand what you're saying. All right, look, if every experience you've had up to this point was not in line with the truth, so they were wrong experiences, but they were connected to a right concept. The concept of love, but love was now connected to something that has nothing to do with love. And so that's all you understood and that's all you learned. So it's very hard then, and you're not the only one with this experience. I mean, sadly, the majority of the women out there have similar experiences, okay? And this is a concern all of us with daughters should be concerned about. And so, and by the way, all of you parents out there, and you have daughters, don't think you know what they're doing. And if they have accounts online, they also have secret ones that you don't know about, that their names are not on, because you don't know what they're doing. And so just, you need to be able to know what they actually are doing. Because somebody may tell you, by the way, I heard this or that, and then you'd be like, no, I've looked at my kids' accounts. Well, only the ones that you know about. Okay, they all have multiple accounts, and they have ones without their name on it that they use to do all the things they shouldn't be doing. And so just what we need to do, though, is we have to do this part, which is help them understand what love is and should be, not what they were taught or came to conclude, because what she was seeking was a relationship. So she wanted one with her father, and the way to do that was to go deal dope with him. But that really isn't a relationship. But that's all that was available to her. She wanted relationships with other people, and they took physical advantage of her. But that's not how you have a relationship with people. But she didn't know that. You only know what you know and what you've experienced. And until you see other things and experience other things, you don't realize there were other options. You just figure this is what's normal. And we've gotten very comfortable in a world that's The normal is very much not in line with what Yahweh does. Normal means the common, what's done on a consistent basis. So normal is very not normal. You know, when we look at Genesis 6, and Brianna and I were looking at that last night, you know, it says...
Genesis 6?
Yeah, Genesis 6. And it says that Yahweh was sorry he made the man. Why was he sorry he made man on the earth? In verse 5 it says, because he saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart, in other words, his mindset, was on only to do things that were not the way Yahweh designed him to do. It says evil. So that became normal. Okay? Okay? Because people will sometimes say, well, that's not normal. Actually, it is normal. It shouldn't be normal, but there are things that, you know, girls being taken advantage of physically, girls being abused physically, the pictures, the whole thing, or the sexual stuff, that is normal. That is awful. But what the word normal means is that that's what is commonly done and accepted as commonly done. That's what we're talking about also in Genesis. We're heading back, it says, just like in the days of Noah, where evil or things that are not as Yahweh designed them to be done are being done as normal. And so how can you know how to do things correctly when all you know is wrong and now considered normal? And so you are in a terrible place for that, because what else can you possibly understand? Like you said, you didn't really understand love the way you're starting to now until you came here, because you had never experienced anything but what you had experienced up to this point. And so what else could you know until you get exposed to other possible paths of experience? Now, when you're younger, the parents have complete control over your level of experience. And so therefore, you may not know there's other things. You know, some of you growing up had parents that like fought every day, and so you might just think that's always normal until you maybe meet other children whose parents don't fight every day. Or maybe, you know, you grew up in an environment like she did where there was drugs and things like that, so you might think it's normal that there's drugs and things like that. And then you come to find out, well, maybe not every house has that going on. That doesn't mean that it's more common or less common. It's simply saying is, until you experience differences, which is why Torah observance has to be experienced. You have no idea how different life can be when you come into covenant. But you have to experience it. All right? Now, from wherever you are, a healing process can then start to take place. You can get counsel. You know, one of the things that I try to do, and some of the ladies can, you know, vouch for this or whatever, is demonstrate, especially when they come to me as a covering, what a proper, you know, guidance, nothing more, but guidance, male relationship of authority can be like. Because a lot of their problems came from male authorities. Male authorities sexually abused them. Male authorities had pictures taken. Male authorities beat them up. So they need to have a male authority that's going to affirm them, encourage them, also correct them when needed, but in a right, loving, appropriate way. And sadly, very few of the women have ever had this experience. And so we're trying to raise up men that can deliver this experience. And I've had a huge blessing to have some of the ladies tell me how much they appreciate that effort that I make when I interact with them. Okay?
You do. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so if I can be, you know, in an appropriate way, a good role model father figure for you, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay?
And it's weird because you look so...
I look like him too, okay.
You do.
Okay, what else can we do for you?
Excuse me. If I can't even see. Romans, where were you in Romans? Oh, yeah, Romans 19.
12:19.
Huh?
12:19.
Yes. Sorry, I saw the bold, and that's where it was.
Yeah.
With the lack of love, because I was in harsh conditions, I've had a lot of hate. And I was thinking about it. I had another incident at the post office with discrimination and stuff, and I'm like, why do I always get this wherever I go? It's like either with Agnes gets it, or I get it, or both. And I noticed I get upset a lot and I kind of like how our situation was with the sippy cup or whatever. I get really pent up. I either do the fight or flight thing, and I notice I go into a fight a lot. And it says, "Vengeance is mine; I shall repay." How do I get the voice in my head to, before I make that leap of jump and defend myself or defend my children, just to stay solemn?
Okay, so first of all, I think it's very important to know, and this goes for everybody that has, no, just everybody. Okay? I was going to limit it, but look, whatever you are, I don't care if you're white, black, green, yellow, or purple, woman or man, handicapped in some way, tall or short, fat or skinny. There's something about you that if you're with the wrong group of people, by wrong meaning a group of people that you're not like, people are not comfortable with people that are not like them. Okay? And that's where prejudice comes from. Okay? So whatever you are, if you're in an environment of people that don't understand you and your issues, are not like you, so they can't relate to you and your issues, you will generally feel prejudiced. You'll feel, in other words, treated differently because of the fact that you're different. Okay? Now, if you were in a room full of people with the exact same problems as you and Agnes, you would not be treated that way because you all understand each other. Yeah. But when you're in a room full of people that don't have your issues, what you end up doing is, I got to make sure I word this right. I don't want you to take it. Well, no, but hold on. What you end up doing is you make them uncomfortable. Not that you make them, but that's the word we use, right? We say we make. No, they choose to feel uncomfortable in your presence. Your being there creates in them a choice that they make to feel uncomfortable. And when they're uncomfortable, people generally pick on, mock, or do something to deal with their discomfort, and they almost always choose a very bad, negative way to do it. All right? And so how you now deal with it is you have to recognize that this has nothing to do with you. You're taking it personally when this is their inability to deal with someone different. You came here. Do you know why you felt love? Because you're no different than anybody in here. We're all screwed up. We're all handicapped. Nobody here, You're in a room full of people just like you. Okay? In different ways, but we all recognize that. All right? So we don't treat you different because you're not really different. Okay? And so that helps in this environment. Because now it's not because you're actually in a room with the same handicaps as you have, but we all recognize that everybody is, so therefore we should not look at anybody differently, because after all, we don't want them looking at us differently because we're handicapped. And that's why I've told everybody, you're all handicapped on some level, whether it's psychologically or emotionally or physically, it doesn't matter. You are handicapped. And almost all of the people here that have embraced that, and if they've embraced that, that's why they're able to embrace you. Instead of looking at you, look, we had a gentleman come to our congregation, this is about 10 years ago when we first started, who was very much on the autism spectrum and all kinds of other problems. And he was challenging for those that didn't understand what I just said. Because we had a brand new congregation, I hadn't taught all this that much. And somebody came up to me during the oneg after the service, when we were going to eat, and asked me, "How come you let that guy come?" And I looked him in the eye and said, "That's why, whatever it is, because he makes you feel that way. And you need to figure that out." So he's here because of you. They didn't like that.
So when my dad said I stirred the pot, he wasn't kidding in a way.
Well, no, but I'm saying is, but you don't stir the pot here.
No,
hold on. You don't stir the pot here like you may think you normally do other places, because we embrace that everybody that comes here has something. Yours is more obvious in some ways, okay? Others is less obvious in some ways. But we understand that everybody coming is challenged, and that's okay. And so, I almost find it, I don't know what the word is, amusing or cute when you come to me at the end of services and ask me, did something Agnes did bother me or something that's bothered me? I'm like, why are you even asking? We accept that you are who you are, she is who she is, and the struggles that you two have, and you don't have to worry about that and apologize for that. If there's anything, I'll come and tell you.
Okay. It's ingrained in my head.
I understand that. And so what I'm trying to do is help you change what's in your head, to recognize that you don't need to worry like that here. Okay? We're changing the script that's in your head. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. And last question, because I know Brianna's behind me, probably getting sore feet. How do I turn the hate that I have, and it's hate. How do I turn the hate when people are so mean and disrespectful to me and my family, and when I spew hate to people here, how do I turn that the other way? And I know it's in here and I read it, but like I'm conceptually, I'm not getting it.
Yes, conceptually. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, look. You're looking at this from the wrong angle. Okay? It's not, you don't turn hate into something. You dig underneath and figure out why you're feeling the feeling so you can let go of the feeling. We're not changing hate into something. We're releasing it. And so you have to dig underneath, and we'll do that through counseling to figure out why it is your response to what's happening is a hate response. Okay? So underneath the hate, there may be a self-loathing, a self-this, or do I deserve this, or why did I do this, or why people pick, I don't, whatever it is, there's something we need to get at so that that thing is triggering hate because of how you feel underneath there somewhere. And what we got to do is talk enough to figure out what it is under there. So I can't figure that out just talking to you here, but understand that A, we're not going to turn hate into anything. Hate just has to be released. Okay? Secondly, there's something happening there's a reason, in other words, for why you feel that level that we call hate. Okay? And so we have to dig that out. See, one of the things I teach Billy and the others who train with me, I'm teaching my daughter now when we're going through the scriptures, is you have to start digging underneath all of the things that are going on. Why is this? Why is that? And it's not just what we're hearing, but there's a reason underlying the behavior. Behavior comes for reasons, and we have to figure out what the reason is and not just deal with the behavior, because the behavior won't stop until the reason for it stops. Okay? Amen? Amen. Okay, good. Okay, so after I embarrassed you 5 times, you still want to come up and say something. That's good. This is my daughter, whom I love very much. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, when it said that if you don't have love, I don't remember exactly what it said, but love is very important. Like other things, if you don't have love, it doesn't matter, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, in other words, all these wonderful things that you could be able to do really don't add up to any value if you don't have love.
So then it reminded me of Deuteronomy 10:12 when it says, he asks you to fear him, to walk in all his ways, to love him and to serve him because it's for your good. So all of those are good. Does he elevate some good above others? Like, does he see as some things that you could do as good more important as other types of good? Because he said that love was more important than any of the other things you could be doing.
Okay, again, the thing is that we're not, this is a good question because we're not single function, we're not single, I guess that word, like a single function. In other words, if I have a pen, right, and I expect that when I push the clicker on here and I go to write, that it will write. It's a single function. Okay, I'm not expecting to use this for 17 other things. I'm expecting that it will write, all right? We're not like that. We're expected to be able to do a whole bunch of things. So if he gifts you, like my daughter has a gift with her voice, she can sing, that voice only has a certain level of value in his eyes without love. Okay, so having a gift, having a talent, and being good at something does have a certain level of value, but he didn't create you to just be manifesting a gift. He's expecting you to do it in the context of love. And so that's the difference. We're not single function creatures. So did that answer the question for you?
Yeah, and then also...
I do also appreciate that you snuck Deuteronomy 10:12 in. That was good.
Yeah, and another thing in Romans, with the don't do evil for evil.
Yeah.
It made me think of when we were doing the 10 Commandments in Gadol class at the feast, we talked about James 2:10, and could you connect that verse to that?
Connecting the verse that says,
It just made me think like evil is evil, like all sin is like same level.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Look, and also the Deuteronomy 10:12 that you had gone to, it says, now Israel, what is Yahweh asking of you? And it says to fear him, to walk in his ways, love him, etc. Then he says to guard his commands and his laws, which I command you today for your good. Now there, I think what he's trying to tell you is that these are things that are there to help you function as intended. Okay? So I think that's part of what it's giving you there, is that these are things that are designed to help you function as intended. He's not just saying they're good things. All right? Good meaning they're desirable or they're positive, because that's what people mainly see when they see the word good. He's saying, look, but if you would fear me, walk in all my ways, love me, serve me, okay, with all your heart, to guard my commands and my laws that I command you today, these things will help you to be the thing that I intended you to be. So that's why they're good. So maybe you can connect that up in Deuteronomy 10:12. So it's very good. All right, that was very good. All right, Craig, and then now that it's almost 6 o'clock, the live streamers are probably wanting to ask something, but go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, as far as patience and kindness and love goes, I know a little bit about love, and it's a little different. I portray it and see it and find it in areas where a lot of other people don't see it or find it, and it comes to our Father and His compassion and mercy that I am expecting. I need that, and therefore when I am wronged, it is wrong for me to do anything else than what our Savior did, to pray for them that they don't know what they're doing, not to want to be there to see it when they get their comeuppance, but the fact that they will be forgiven, that they will find the same compassion in the Father on Judgment Day that I will need as well. Without that, I don't stand a chance, and I think a lot of us are like that. And then I forget where else I was gonna. And I think that just not the warm, fuzzy, loving kind of feeling, I guess, a lot of times that as you talk about being a conduit, sometimes it is almost as if we can be put in somebody's life to be able to absorb some of that nonsense or the BS, and not taking past that on, but actually be like a receptacle on that end of it, like it stops with us, and
Yeah.
it's so difficult.
That's a good point. I mean, that's something that you certainly can embrace. I think all of us can embrace. Like, if stuff is flowing in your direction, that's not good stuff. Well, the very minimum you could be is the stopping point so it doesn't keep going. Okay? That doesn't mean necessarily that you are in a position, depending on your relationship, you might be, but it doesn't mean you're in a position to make the other person stop. At least you don't keep going with it. At the very minimum, you can not continue the flow of it forward into other places and just decide that it ends with you. That doesn't mean the other person might not keep going to other people, but, and if you have the right relationship, you might be able to say to them, maybe this is something you don't need to be just spreading. Okay? So that could work that way too. All right. Thank you for your patience. We've been talking about patience. Live stream.
All right, from Anna Udine, 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3. If the person who you're trying to talk to does not receive it, does that mean that it wasn't done in love? Who gets to decide if this action was done in love?
So I'm not really sure where 1 to 3 has to do with that question, but the idea, because 1 to 3 was really about I could do all kinds of things, and if I don't have love, it's of no point. The thing is, you do what you do because it's the right thing to do, okay? You do the right thing. Okay, what's the right thing? We talk about righteousness and the right thing. The right thing means it's right according to what Yahweh says, which means that it's good. If it's right, it's good. Because if it's right, it means that you're using or doing what was intended to be done. The thing is that you cannot control how the other person receives it. And their receiving it or not doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not it was right. You could do everything right in a situation or circumstance and have the other person completely not receive it or receive it incorrectly or misunderstand or something. It doesn't change that what you did was right. And so, as far as the love part, okay, again, love is not connected. Look, it says love is patient. That doesn't mean the other person appreciates it or not. It says love is kind. Doesn't mean the other person appreciates it or not, right? There's all these things that are about you and how you deliver and what's coming out of you. The other person, that's their problem and their thing, okay? So this is about what you receive and what you give out. How you receive what comes to you, it's not about the reciprocity, though. Okay, it's not about you do and then you're expecting a response, and that the response, this is clear, let's be really clear. The response is not proof or evidence of what you did. The response is basically coming out of the level of reception that the person that you did, whatever you did, received it or not. Now, if they're in a negative place, they may not have received it the right way. If they're in a dysfunctional place, they may not have been capable of receiving it the right way. Okay? There are some of you out there that really can't receive compliments because you're already convinced what a useless loser you are. Or you can't receive encouragement, or you can't receive correction because you just can't. In other words, I can do everything right, your spouse can do everything right, or whatever it is can do everything right, and if you're not able to receive, that doesn't mean that what was done was not done right. Now, a person can respond wonderfully and you did it wrong. So it doesn't mean that it was done right either if they respond in a good way. Okay? So, look, let's take Ashley for a second, right? Ashley was doing stuff with her father, whatever, and she was getting, at least what she thought she wanted was attention. Does that mean what he was doing was right? No. But she got what she was looking for, at least as she understood at that point, which was attention. Was it the right attention? No. In the right form? No. Right? But this is the screwed up place that she grew up in. So the response doesn't determine whether the thing that was done correctly. Does that really make it clear? Because you can get a response that you're looking for and do the wrong things that you shouldn't be doing, and still get a response that you like. Or you could do everything right and get a response that you didn't expect or didn't want, but you still did everything right. You have to measure it up against what Scripture says and what your counseling and teachers help you to understand is the appropriate thing to do, and you do it. And even if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, you do it. Okay? I'll give you an example. This is going to be a strange example, I guess, but years ago, I used to play poker. I like poker for some reason. And I studied the game, and I understood the mathematics of it, and there was mathematics to it, believe it or not just knowing what cards beat what or whatever. And the teachers that I was studying from basically said, this is what you do in this circumstance, in this situation, but it won't always work, but over time, it should give you a better result. But don't judge just because it didn't work one time that it doesn't work, because it's not always going to work, but it's still the right play. And they explained why. Well, Yahweh gives us a book that tells us what the right play is in all circumstances. Okay? He says love is patient. Do you notice that it doesn't give any circumstances linked to that? It just says love is patient. That means all the time, in every circumstance. So if you're being patient, then you're right. Does the person appreciate it? Maybe, maybe not. Doesn't change the fact that you were being patient. You could be kind, and the person may not think you're being kind. Or they may wonderfully appreciate how kind you are. It could be any range of response. Okay, don't make the mistake of judging whether what you did was right based on response. You could do wrong things and get a positive response. You could do right things and get a negative response. You could do right things and get a positive response, and wrong things and get a negative response. I mean, you can get all levels of response to what you do. The problem is, if you're only going to go by feedback, you're going to end up in really bad places. Because you do a lot of really bad, dumb things, and end up with a lot of really good feedback, and end up in really bad places. So let's be really careful with that. Okay, next question.
All right, so D, what if you tell someone, or what if you tell them what you said hurt my feelings and they keep doing it?
Okay, so again, you're trying to figure out the whole dealing, how to deal with responses. Okay, so I tell you what you did hurt my feelings and you keep doing it. Well, you probably need counseling, and especially with both of you. But the thing is, if the person keeps doing it after you tell them that it hurts their feelings, then there is a receiving information and communication problem. It may not be that you communicated it very well, maybe you did. It may not be that they received it very well, maybe they didn't. But if they received it and they keep doing it, then you have a problem while you keep putting yourself back in the same position where that keeps happening. So first thing you must think of is, am I communicating it well? And if the answer you feel is yes, then you say, well, then I have to wonder if they're receiving it well. Meaning, are they receiving it as I intended? Are they receiving it? And if you're not really sure, and it's really hard to be sure what they're doing. You can be sure about yourself to some degree. I know I'm communicating, it should be okay. Although I tell you what, I've got a lot of wives and husbands saying, well, I've explained this and said that. And the other person's like, no, you didn't. It's like, you might think you're communicating and you're not. Okay? So that's where counseling kind of helps for that kind of stuff. And so that's where if I sit with you, I can say, okay, say it to him now, or say it to her now, and then I can look at the other person like, did you understand that? Or how did you understand that? Well, what I did really upset him or upset her, and that hurt their feelings. Okay, did you want to hurt their feelings? No. Or sometimes it's yes, because there was something before that, and they were trying to get their revengeance, right? So if they say no, then I say, okay, then why do you keep doing it? Because she says or he says you keep doing it. And then we can work those things through. Remember, habitual pattern behaviors are hard to stop doing. They don't just fix just because someone says, you may not be aware of this, but you hurt my feelings. And I'm like, yeah, but I've been acting this way and you've been acting this way for 20 years of marriage, and so it doesn't fix just because now I'm aware of it. It's a pattern of behavior that I'm stuck in a loop, and you're stuck in a loop, and so we need help breaking out of the loop. Okay? Look, I really hope that you guys have no idea that you're getting literally thousands and thousands of dollars worth of free stuff here. No, I'm not saying it as a joke. I paid lots of money to give you what I gave you today. Seminars, books, tapes, whatever. And I think some of you really appreciate that. Some of you have no idea what the value I gave you today. All right? For free, on a Shabbat, as part of your sermon. But this is, man, if you could embrace this, your relationships will get better. Because you'll start to understand where the challenges and why there's challenges and that kind of thing. And you'll have to realize that, like the person who just asked that question, not Kurt, the person who asked the question he read. Like the person who asked that question, you probably need counseling. So there's a third-party person to help you hear each other. I tell every marriage counseling I start, I say, look, my number one job is to help you make sure you're hearing each other. Okay? Oh, I hear what she had to say. I hear what he had. No, you're not listening. You have to literally hear what they're saying. Okay? That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. I'm not here to make you agree with anybody. But I want to make sure, did you hear? Did you receive that? Okay, then what are we going to do with that now that you say, yes, I heard that and received it? And then the other person, did you hear and receive? Because there's two sides. Usually they're both angry and they're both upset and they both have their feelings hurt or whatever. But neither one is caring that much about the other one because they feel like the other one doesn't care about them. So why should I care? You don't care about me. All right, next.
All right. If a husband is held more responsible for his wife, does this mean that Rabbi is more responsible for the single women who have accepted him as covering?
Okay, I think I understood it. Say it one more time.
If a husband is held more responsible for his wife,
yes.
Does this mean Rabbi is more responsible for the single women who have accepted him as a covering?
No. No, listen, there's a difference between covering and husband, okay? All right? So I could put you, I'm your husband, and I put you in a beautiful house, or I put you in whatever kind of an apartment or house that we have, or I can put you outside under a tarp, okay? The tarp is a covering. Your husband gives you a home, okay? So as a covering, all I'm doing is to help you think through situations that you normally would go to your husband for, but you don't have one. These are not halachic decisions. These are decisions like, do I need to get insurance for this? Or should I buy or rent this? Or should I, I'm thinking of doing the big decisions that you figure that you normally should get a third or fourth or second, at least second opinion on. But normally, if you're a wife, you should ask your husband before you do things. Or if before you had a husband, you maybe asked your father. But now what do you do when you don't have either one of those? So we can provide that. This is not the same as the burden of responsibility that I have for anything my wife does. I'm a husband. She's my wife. She's part of me, and my children are part of me. Everything they do reflects on me, and I have a certain responsibility for. Because I am responsible to make sure that what they do, as best I can, is going to be good and appropriate and right, and when it's not, that reflects on me. Whether I had control over it or not, it doesn't matter. They are mine. It's like when it says, and if your ox kills somebody, it's still your ox. And you're responsible to a certain degree because it was your ox. All right? And so let's understand that. So as a man who's providing a service for the single ladies as a covering, it's there to be advisory counsel when you have nobody else that you can go to, especially having somebody you can go to that has actually no ulterior benefit. In other words, any advice I give you, if you do it or not, isn't going to affect me at all. I've got no reason to lead you towards one thing or another. Some other people you might talk to might have their own agendas, okay? I don't have one. All right, so hopefully that answered that question.
All right, next question is, you said, Rabbi, that a selfless person cannot be offended. What about feeling hurt? And how do we tell the difference between offended and hurt within ourselves?
Oh, they're both the same thing. You can't feel hurt either if you're selfless. Because remember, what's being hurt is your feelings, okay? I mean, unless somebody smacks you, well, that hurts, okay? But maybe only for a second. But as far as feeling hurt, it's because there's some part of yourself that, actually, offense had to be as part of that. You took an offense to what someone did to you, to how they treated you, or maybe they didn't treat you when you wanted to be treated, right? They ignored you, or they marginalized you, or they did something that was not actually doing something, but by not doing something, the neglectful part of that, the rejection, it hurts. It only hurts if you needed something from them. If you're selfless, you don't need anything from anybody, okay? Because it's only yourself that needs anything. Emotionally, okay? That's not to say you don't want. I'm saying you don't need. All right? So who can hurt you the most? Your spouse. Why? Because, in a sense, the relationship that you created has you needing them to validate you, give you attention, appropriate attention, to love you and to care about you and your feelings and everything else. That's that kind of relationship. Sadly, though, we do this with people we're not married to. Why is anybody not that intimate with you able to hurt you? I have no idea. Okay, but again, I've sort of either never had that or moved past it because maybe it's because of lack of blue. I'm wearing blue. That's about all I got. Okay? And when I go home later, I'll embrace my blue. Okay, so, but you understand, you are having these challenges because of the self. It's the self that needs validation. It's the self that needs to be treated a certain way, to feel a certain. In other words, to have the positive emotions the self needs. If you're selfless, you can feel any way you choose. You don't need anybody to do anything. Do you understand? A selfless person has all options available. A selfish person, a person who's about self, has limited options. You really can't choose to feel any way you want because you're being controlled by how the self feels. All right? I don't like. Well, take the I out of there and then you just have don't like. Well, then who cares? Who doesn't like? Don't like. Well, who? I. Oh, now it's self again. All right? I don't want, I like, I want. Get that I out of there, there's no issues. Because what happens when you have hurt feelings? What would you say? I don't like the way he talked to me. I don't like what he did. I don't like, that word I is always going to be in there to describe why you're hurt. Okay? Well, I didn't like what he did. I don't like what he said. I don't like the way he treated me in front of everybody. I don't like, that I is part of why you feel hurt. You get the I part out of there, that's selfless, none of that's going to happen anymore. Okay? It's only the I that hurts, that is offended, that has all that emotional stuff. Okay? That feels depressed, that feels anxious, that feels panicky, that feels insecure, that feels neglected, that feels, because if you had all that stuff in you, then you wouldn't have any self to worry about. You wouldn't have any of those negative feelings. That hopelessness, that all leads to, especially we have a real problem in this world with depression. Some of it's, legitimately probably chemical or whatever they say that is, but some of it is because we have way too much self. Because even people that don't have clinical depression might feel depressed or find something, they'll say, wow, that's depressing. Meaning, that's not something I desired and I like or I wanted. And it's disappointing and depressing to find out that that's what that is or whatever. So, these are words we use that always have the word I in front of them. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Next.
The next question, how does one come out of loving like the world, examples being codependency, attachment issues, and into loving like Yeshua? It feels like I'm just on auto drive. I love, but I don't feel like it's like it used to.
Okay. Whatever, I'm going to give this a simple answer. This will be very quick. I gave this answer once before, lots of times. Whatever you have, become an expert. If you believe that you're having an issue loving in a codependent way, study and learn about codependency so that you can understand the roots of it, the causes of it, and then how to fix it. Okay, whatever your challenge is, I've told you, become an expert at your handicap. Study it, learn about it, understand it, and then you'll learn the tools from some of the people that have dealt with it, how to deal with it. Find your workarounds, how to solve it, how to resolve it, how to cure it, whatever level it can be. Some things can't be fixed, they can only be worked around. But then you got to find the workarounds. All right, next.
From Pete and Brenda Lamb, is the love spoken about in 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8, applicable to the vertical as well as the horizontal love?
Okay, we didn't go that far, so we can cover that next week.
All right, that's it then.
Okay, so wait, let's go back to the codependency question. Isn't the codependency question the same as the previous question, which is you feeling that you need to be or need something from other people? See, if you're selfless, you could never be codependent. Because the key word is co, which means both, like in addition to and dependent. See, if you're selfless, you don't need anything. You're not dependent on. Okay? So when you're being codependent, it means you're being dependent with. Okay? So it all goes back to that same problem. But see, if you can label your problem and you know that that's actually what your problem is, then you need to be more expert in that particular problem. Because I don't know a whole lot necessarily about codependency. I know enough to help people with it to a certain degree, but I've never actually studied it enough. But if I had that problem, I would study it. Okay? So that you can become an expert at it and deal with it. All right, so that's going to cover it. We need to go get...